All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles of Great Millstone and citations to the elect. This is Brother Lawyer from Great Millstone, Miami. And the topic I want to go into in this lesson is going to be distress of nations, okay, and perplexity, all right? And it's going to be based off of this article that I ran across, a few days ago from Newsweek, okay? It says power grid warning issued for 11 states, okay? All right. And I'm gonna just read the article, not the whole thing. And then I'll go to the scriptures, man. Okay, it says warnings have been issued for portions of the United States electric grid, power grid amid a forecasted severe geomagnetic storm. Okay, all right. It says the Space Weather Prediction Center of the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration issued the forecast on Tuesday, saying a geomagnetic storm at a strength of category G4 would cause issues with electrical grids for states poleward, which means the northern states of the 45th parallel. States north of that latitude include Oregon, Idaho, Montana, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, Michigan, New York, Vermont, New Hampshire, and Maine. Okay. Now, I do want to just also look into what a geomagnetic storm is real quick too. Let's see here. Geomagnetic storm. All right. And, this is all according to Esau. Let's see. Geomagnetic storm. Storm meaning. All right. What is a geomagnetic storm? Okay. It says a geomagnetic storm is a major disturbance of the Earth's magnetosphere caused by an energy exchange with the solar wind, typically from a coronal mass ejection. So this has to do with the sun's radiation of energy. Okay. The sun is releasing energy. All right. Charged energy, however you say it. And it's interacting with the Earth's magnetosphere, right? It says these storms can cause the aurora borealis or australis and can disrupt power grids, satellites, and radio communication. Okay. So basically the sun is letting out a certain amount of energy, massive energy, enough to affect the Earth's magnetosphere and atmosphere. And because of the clashing and interaction of these energies, power grids and electrical items can go down. Okay. All right. They can be put offline, affected negatively on a wide scale. Okay. Because this is coming from the sun. Right. So with that being said, right. So, hey, man, that's prophecy speaking. Okay. And it's no coincidence, man, because, there's been a lot of talks of these grid failures for the past really 5 to 6 years, I'll say. Almost 6 years, grid failures, whether it be because of the sun's radiation or whether it be because of some type of cyber attack. There's been talks of, mass blackouts, mass grid failures. I remember back in 2022, 2023, that was a big thing, and I want to even say in 2024, there was certain parts of the world where the grid was just going down, the power grid in certain areas of the earth was just going down for, sometimes hours and days at a time, and oftentimes it was blamed on, these geomagnetic storms and solar activity. Okay. Now, whether or not that's the honest truth, because Esau is the devil, it could just be Esau fucking around with the power grid too. Either way is still according to prophecy. Okay. Because the scriptures talk about the stress of nations. Okay. On one end. Okay. Which if it is Esau, then it still lines up with the prophecies. Okay. But if it is the son, it still lines up with the prophecies. Okay. All right. Luke chapter 21, verse 25, it says, "And there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars, and upon the earth the stress of nations with perplexity, the seas and the waves roaring." Okay. So it's been a lot of talk of power grid failures and mass blackouts. If it ever does come to that in Babylon specifically, hey, this is going to lead that's going to lead to mass chaos. Okay. Whether again, it's inflicted by, the heathen or Esau, some type of, cyber attack type of event, or if it is because of the sun. Okay. That would lead to mass distress. Okay. Not only here in Babylon, but also all over the world, because of course the American economy and the Babylonian system is interconnected like a web with all the economies of these other nations. Okay. All right. So that would lead to distress of nations. That would lead to, these cities being cast down like the scriptures talk about. Okay. That would lead to famines. That would lead to, food shortages and riots and perplexity, a shortage on resources. Okay. People not knowing what to do. All right. It says men's hearts failing them for fear and for looking after those things which are coming on the earth, for the powers of heaven shall be shaken. Okay. So, if anything like that were to happen, all right, like a mass grid failure, that affects a large portion of Babylon or a large portion of the world at whole. Again, whether it be caused by the heathen, by Esau, or by, cosmic activity from the sun. Okay, that would lead to these scriptures being fulfilled. Okay. All right. It would lead to distress of nations and perplexity. It would lead to men's hearts failing them for fear. It would lead to the near collapse of society as a whole. Really, the collapse in general. It would lead to a collapse. Okay. All right. To put it blunt. Okay. People would be running around with chickens with their heads cut off. The life as we know it, would be utterly disrupted. Okay. All right. It would lead to massive violence and things of that nature. Okay. And that could be a tool that Esau uses to speed up his Revelation MOTB system. Okay. The mark of the beast system. All right. Because with the grid failure, you can take a lot of people out like that, all right. And you can ration out food and resources and energy. Okay. And force people into a position to where they have to integrate into a system by taking an RFID chip. This could very well be, or an event similar. Again, whether it's by the son or by Esau or both, that could lead to, all hell breaking loose and the hour of temptation and the mark of the beast. It's very likely. It's not. I'll say it's not off the table. All right, and it's beautiful that the Lord, this talking point, of grid failures and mass blackouts keeps coming up. Okay. all right, on the global stage. It keeps coming up on these headlines. All right. It's, maybe it is. Maybe, maybe something like that could happen. Right. Okay. And again, it's not outside of the world of the realm of possibility, because the Bible talks about plagues. The Bible talks about perplexity of nations. The Bible talks about, distress of nations. Okay. Mass chaos on a global scale. And again, an event like that, or maybe that event along with other events, maybe like a mass blackout or power outage, would definitely move things in the direction of prophecy. So I'm going to go to 2nd Ezra, the 15th chapter. And let's see. I'll do this. All right. It says in verse 10. Well, matter of fact, verse 5, right? It says, "Behold, saith the Lord, I will bring plagues upon the world, sword, famine, death, and destruction. For wickedness hath exceedingly polluted the whole earth, and their hurtful works are fulfilled." Okay. So, a mass power outage, a mass grid failure would lead to, mass violence. The grid fails, the law enforcement, the way of communicating to one another. People would lose it. I remember a few years ago, YouTube was down, Instagram was down, Facebook was down. People were tweaking, man. Okay. They were questioning their sense of reality. I remember that, man. Okay. All right. Over the past years, there's been different, certain grids and systems and networks that have been struck, whether it be cyber attack or they blamed it on the sun or something. Okay. And that's been the thing that's been happening more and more over the past few years. All right. And it affected people's jobs. It affected people's ability to get goods here and there. It wasn't world ending or apocalyptic like in the movies, but we see this trend. So again, if something like this were to happen, it would definitely lead, okay, to mass chaos, mass violence. Okay. All right. Food shortages. Okay. People not able to get from one place to another, like the scriptures say. Mass death. Okay. Restrictions on travel. Okay. All right. Now jumping down to verse 10, it says, "Behold, my people is led as a flock to the slaughter. I will not suffer them now to dwell in the land of Egypt, but I will bring them with a mighty hand and a stretched out arm, and will smite Egypt with plagues as before, and will destroy all the land thereof." Okay. All right. So how, if a power grid failure were to happen, again, as a result of this, geomagnetic storm, or as a result of Esau, doing his wickedness, or the heathen or something like that, maybe a cyber war or something. All right. How would that lead to this prophecy being fulfilled? Well, we read about Egypt. In ancient Egypt, the Lord plagued them with darkness. So what's to say that something like that, similar like that couldn't happen? Okay. The power grid just fails, on a large scale, across Babylon. Maybe not everywhere, but, certain parts. Okay. That would lead to famine. That would lead to civil unrest and seditions, riots in the street. Okay. Now jumping down even further. Okay. All right. It says, "Woe to the world and them that dwell therein, for their sword destruction draweth nigh, and one people shall stand up to fight against another, and swords in their hand." Okay. And you can imagine, you can definitely guarantee if something like that were to happen, and the power was out for an extended period of time, people will go to fighting each other, man, and robbing each other, stealing from each other. Okay. All right. It says, "For there shall be sedition amongst men." It would definitely lead to sedition and invading one another. "They shall not regard their kings nor princes, and the course of their actions shall stand in their power." Okay. And that's something that would definitely happen if there's no way to communicate. There's no way for people to get an update on the news of how to handle the situation. People are going to resort to their own means and not regard, the local government, which would mean that more draconian, and totalitarian forces would have to be used, to manage the people. Okay. All right. And to keep the people in some kind of order. It says a man shall desire to go into a city and shall not be able. That's something that would definitely happen if there was a mass power grid failure. Okay. Because, at a certain point in time, the gas in your car and tank runs out. If there's a power grid failure, people going to be trying to rush to the gas station to get gas. They won't be able to pump it because they won't be able to buy. Okay. Because the whole system of transaction is run off of electricity. Okay. All right. Traffic would be at a standstill. Okay. Eventually the water filtration systems of a city go down too. There might be little backup generators here and there that might turn some shit on here and there. But that might not be something everybody can access or everybody will be able to benefit from. Okay. All right. So that's just chaos, just running rampant. And the chaos itself will keep people from wanting to travel from city to city. Okay, it says, for because of their pride, the city shall be troubled, the houses shall be destroyed, and men shall be afraid. A man shall have no pity upon his neighbor, but shall destroy their houses with the sword and spoil their goods because of the lack of bread and for great tribulation. Because eventually people run out of goods, people, robbing the store, looting, All right, eventually there's no food left. Okay. There's no food in the stores there, and then now people got to, defend themselves and fend for themselves, protect what little they may have, especially in these big cities, man, relying on outside exports. But the outside exports can't get in and you can't get out. What happens? Violence breaks out, man. All right. That's what would happen. Okay. Yeah, man. So it would definitely be a crazy situation, man, if something like that were to go down. Okay, which again, it's not out of the realm of possibility because, because the prophecies talk about things that could erupt or things that will happen. All right. In this time period. OK, that could be the result of a power grid failure. OK, let me see. Confusion also in many places. Second Ezra. All right. All right. This is Second Ezra chapter 5 and 8. It says there shall be confusion also in many places. And the fire shall be oft sent out again, and wild beasts shall change their places, and ministress women shall bring forth monsters. Okay, so that would lead to confusion, mass hysteria, mass pandemonium, people freaking out. Again, going back to what the scriptures say in Luke, the 21st chapter, distress of nations with perplexity. People not going to know what the hell to do. Okay. That's a plague, man. That's horrifying. And that's what the Lord said. That's what the scriptures say. Be kept in the hour. You want to be kept in the hour of temptation, man. You want the Lord to be with you in your household, man. Because some shit like that go down, man. Hey, the Lord just going to have to be with you. Okay. All right. Strong's G for the word distress. I got to, read the verse again. This is Luke 21 and 25. It says, and there shall be signs in the sun and in the moon and in the stars and upon the earth, distress of nations with perplexity. Okay. Distress of nations. All right. What does the word distress mean? It's sinoke. All right. Strong's G 49:28. It says a holding together, a narrowing, a contracting part of a way, which means it gets tight. It gets tighter, restraint. anxiety, metaphorically straight to stress, anguish. Okay, that would lead to a lot of anguish, man. Okay, a lot of people would starve to death, man. A lot of people would just drop fucking dead, man. The refrigerator doesn't work. The stove doesn't work. People don't know how to fend for themselves. Certain people need their medications refrigerated. Dead. Okay. The normal way of life is stopped. There's no access to social media. The phones died. The cell towers are down. People not going to school. People not going to work. Now they're just there sitting there having to deal with thoughts of anxiety, not knowing what the hell's going on. They don't know what's happening. They don't have no access to the news to give them some kind of peace of mind if any relief is coming. And then what happens next? People lose it. Okay? People lose it. Perplexity. All right? The state of one being perplexed, Strong's G60, 640, 640. All right? Aporia. Okay? And what does it mean? It says to be without resources when you go to the root. All right? Aporeo. All right, Strong's G639. It says to be without resources, to be in straits, to be left wanting, to be embarrassed, to be in doubt, to not know which way to turn, to be at loss with oneself, to be in doubt. Like, what am I going to do? What's going on? I don't know what's happening. I can't leave, but I can't stay. You try to leave, the road's backed up. You stay. You know what I'm saying? You hearing gunshots, people breaking into each other's houses, people crying and screaming. Don't know what to do. Hey, some shit like that go down. Hey, man, we gonna see why the scriptures say be kept from the hour of temptation. We're gonna see why the Lord said, a time like no other time, and the angels are gonna have to step in. Okay. All right. Because that'll be crazy, man. But this is what the prophecies talk about, man. The prophecies talk about perilous times, savage times, man. Okay. In the last days, perilous times shall come. It's in the Bible. It's in the Bible, man. So we're at a point in history, which really a point in history is really a point in prophecy when you really think about it, right? But we're at a point in history or at a point in prophecy where, nothing is off the table. Okay? Nothing is off the table, man. All right? Hey, man, it's going to be bad for these people out here, man. And we going to be in certain situations where it's like, damn. But the Lord is going to keep us, man. We just got to keep the faith and stay prayed up, and call out to the Lord. You know what I'm saying? This is 2 Timothy chapter 3, verse 1. All right. It says, know also that in the last days perilous times shall come. Okay. Strong's G54, 67. Kalepos, it says hard to do, to take, to approach, troublesome, dangerous, hard to bear, harsh, fierce, and savage, difficult. Through the idea of reducing strength, man. So people are not going to have any power to do anything, man. And they're just going to resort to their base instincts. Okay. For something like 2nd Ezra 15 to happen, it would have to be to play out. It would have to be events like power grid failures and you know what I'm saying, to make things like that happen, because as much as we hear about hyperinflation and this joblessness and, what I'm saying, it's mass shootings and for the most part, everything is everything. What I'm saying? Benefits being cut off, this, that. For the most part, everything is everything, right? As it is right now. Okay, it's going to have to take a major event or major events And when I say major, I'm not just saying a little bit of here. I'm talking about major world flipped upside down events. Okay, something really to either match or outdo the C-19 and the lockdowns and all of that, man. Yeah, for what we read about in Second Ezra 15 and 16, those calamities, it would take something like a power grid failure and similar events to bring that to pass. And that's just the reality, man. And may Yahweh Shai Shai be with us, man. Okay. May the Lord be with us, man. Okay. And again, I'm not, I didn't bring out that article in the sense like this is going to happen tomorrow or, 2 weeks from now, like some freaking, what's that guy name? I forget his name, man. Like Jason A or Dabu 7 or some shit or damn, I forget the other guy's name. But I'm not saying it like that. I'm just, again, I'm just bringing this out because this is in alignment with biblical prophecy. Hey, we measure the times the best that we can through the scriptures, and it's not off the table that something like this, like a power grid failure on a mass scale, can lead to what the prophecies talk about. Okay, not only would it be a result, an actual result of prophecy, whichever way you want to cut it, whether you want to talk about it from a stance of science or whether you want to talk about it from a stance of a cyber attack, either way it goes is prophecy. But if something like that were to happen, it would definitely push the prophecies forward as well. So it would hit two prophetic birds with one stone. Okay. All right. Now I'm going to close out with this because I feel like the Spirit wants me to. So this is Revelation chapter 3, verse 10. It says, because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. Behold, I come quickly, hold that fast which thou hast, that no man take thy crown. So, with all of that being said, a lot of shit is coming down the road, man, and hey, we got to stay in the spirit, stay prayed up. Okay. Keep the faith. All right. And hey, how about Shai said that he's going to keep us, man, which is going to be a mighty thing too. Because again, as I've been saying, if something like this were to happen, it would lead to famines. It would lead to food shortages, water shortages. It would lead to the famine of the word. It will lead to violence. And these are all things that the Lord said he's going to keep us through. Like a famine pop off, the Lord said that his elect are not going to suffer famine. So just imagine what the Lord is getting ready to do, because there's a lot that Esau has in his plans to do. All right. And as I said, if something like a power grid failure were to happen, it could be Esau doing his manipulation, or it could be a result of the actual sun, which the Lord did say in Revelation, the 18th, I believe it's the 16th chapter. It talks about how the angels would be intensifying the heat of the sun to scorch men with fire. Okay. But it's a lot of, calamities that are going to take place, to bring, the end of this age. All right. And the Lord is going to keep us through all of that, man. So imagine that, what mighty work Yahweh Shai is getting ready to do in the earth is going to blow our mind, man. Call Haloyim Lai Yahweh Shai Bahashim Rachakwadash. Double honors to the elder apostles, a great millstone, and salutations to the elect. Shalom.